two of the Bible's most famous and powerful artifacts, designed by God himself from a mysterious chest.
The Ark of the Covenant is the most desired object in history, thanks to the Ark's phenomenal power to protect its owners and destroy their enemies.
To a life-saving vessel.
Noah's Ark is designed to save all of creation.
Each of these arks has prompted innumerable quests, along with countless books, movies, and even operas. But did either ark actually exist? And if so, where could they be?
No one has found Noah's Ark because they've been looking in the wrong place.
Kratzer turns on his flashlight, and right in front of him, he sees a gold-colored box that can only be the Ark of the Covenant.
Sacred objects have inspired awe for thousands of years. Now the remarkable stories behind history's most compelling holy marvels. The Ark of the Covenant has inspired historians and archaeologists for thousands of years. It's been seen in countless works of art and even chased down by Indiana Jones. But the real-life story might be even better than the movies.
There's an argument to be made that this might be the most desired object in history, thanks to the phenomenal power it's said to possess. Millions of people are familiar with the tales of the Ark's ability to protect its owners and destroy their enemies.
Of course, we all know Indiana Jones was fascinated by the Ark, but so was Adolf Hitler and several other high-ranking Nazis. This is described as the most powerful weapon ever built.
The story of the Ark starts around the 13th century BC with a group of people called the Israelites. They've been enslaved by the Egyptians, and they're eager to change their situation.
In the book of Exodus, with God's help, Moses leads the Israelites out of bondage and into the desert, searching for a place they call the Promised Land. Eventually, as they travel through the desert, they reach Mount Sinai, where God appears before Moses and gives him the 10 Commandments.
God also tells Moses to build him a holy vessel to hold the tablets of the commandments. This is the Ark of the Covenant. The Hebrew word aron means ark or box, and the covenant refers to the sacred agreement between God and the Israelites.
In the Bible, God himself gives Moses detailed instructions for building the ark.
The Ark is to be made of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high, which translates to approximately 52 inches long, 31 inches wide, 31 inches high.
It's covered entirely in gold inside and out, and it has 4 rings along the side of it. These are meant for special poles made of the same wood to pass through so that the ark can be carried with the people as they travel through the desert. And finally, the box is topped off with a really ornate gold lid that has 2 modeled cherubim angels on the top.
Once the ark is ready, the Israelites carry it with them wherever they go.
The Bible itself, it tends to suggest that this is a very dangerous object as well as being a very holy object. There are accounts of people looking at it directly, becoming blinded. There are accounts of people getting too close and having their skin erupt in boils. Even Moses, when he's the first one to encounter this, his face becomes disfigured and he goes through the rest of his life wearing a veil.
The ark demonstrates other kinds of incredible power as well.
In the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, an army of 40,000 Israelites have their sights set on the city of Jericho. But they've reached an obstacle. The Jordan River is in a massive flood stage, and there's no way around it. That is until several priests emerge carrying the ark.
They put their feet in the river, and the river dries up, much like the drying up of the Red Sea when Moses crosses it. It's a sign that God is operating through the power of the ark.
Once they reach the walls of Jericho, the Israelites begin their attack with a siege. They blow horns and march the ark around the entire circumference of the city. They do this every day for a week until on the 7th day, the walls of Jericho fall.
It's incredible. No catapults, no cannons. The walls just crumble, as if by magic.
The Bible makes this very clear. This would only have been possible thanks to the power of the object that they have, this weapon. Without the Ark of the Covenant, they had no hope. But with it, they're an unstoppable force.
What's the secret behind the object's immense power?
It's believed the Ark actually houses God full-time on earth. No other item in the Bible ever grants the ability to carry the power of God around in the front of your army.
Moses actually talks directly to God using the Ark. They have conversations where God speaks from between the two cherubs on the lid.
The Ark is next mentioned in an important Old Testament book called 1 Samuel.
In 1 Samuel, the Philistines go to war against the Israelites. During the fighting, the Philistines actually manage to steal the Ark, which is pretty surprising. When they get it home, they place it in a vault where they also keep a statue of their own god, Dagon. The next day, they find Dagon in a totally different spot, face down, bowed before the Ark.
The Philistines begin to suffer from plagues of boils, and to make matters worse, mice overrun the city. They realize that the Ark is not a force to be trifled with, so they bring it back to the Israelites, and soon after, their maladies are healed.
The Ark of the Covenant becomes a large part of the Israelites' military strategy. They continue winning battles with it, and because it's a direct way to converse with God, they can consult it and receive advice and tactics before battle.
Eventually, around 1000 BC, the Israelites bring the Ark to Jerusalem, where King Solomon builds a temple for it.
On the top of a hill called Mount Moriah, Solomon constructs a massive holy compound. He has the hill leveled flat, and it becomes known as the Temple Mount. At the center of the temple, Solomon builds a chamber called the Holy of Holies. The Ark of the Covenant is placed inside, and it becomes the central focal point of the Israelite religion. God now has a permanent home amongst humankind where he can speak to his followers.
For around 400 years, the Ark remains in the temple undisturbed, until 587 BC.
There's a rival kingdom right next door in Mesopotamia called the Babylonians, led by King Nebuchadnezzar II.
The Babylonians wage a savage war against Jerusalem. After a 30-month-long siege, they completely destroy the city, tearing down the temple and lighting the whole place on fire.
As far as the Bible is concerned, this is the last mention of the Ark of the Covenant's location. It's in Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem is destroyed. So from here, you have basically two options. Either the Ark is destroyed along with the temple, or it's not.
If it survives, where could it be?
In a Jewish source called the Mishnah, it's believed that just before the Babylonians close in, the prophet Jeremiah is able to hide the Ark in a secret passageway underneath the temple.
Remember, Jerusalem is under siege for nearly 3 years before its destruction. Getting the Ark out of the city might have been too difficult.
There are hundreds, maybe thousands of chambers and tunnels inside Mount Moriah, but exploring them is nearly impossible due to the all-important and fragile historical sites all around, as well as the politics between the Jewish and Muslim and Christian communities. The Temple Mount is currently under Islamic control.
But these considerable challenges haven't stopped a few notable people from trying to find the Ark within Mount Moriah,
including amateur archaeologist Ron Wyatt.
Wyatt starts out as a nurse anesthetist. He's an evangelical Christian, and he becomes fascinated by biblical history. He makes over 100 trips to the Holy Land, trying to locate multiple biblical artifacts. By around 1980, Wyatt focuses his efforts on finding the Ark of the Covenant under Mount Moriah. So he starts by exploring some of the tunnels that enter in from the north, and Wyatt claims to see a chamber and tunnel that has remained untouched. It's completely empty and undisturbed. He takes this to mean that nobody has ever discovered it before.
He spots a large stalactite hanging from the roof, and it appears to be blocking a chamber behind it. According to Wyatt, he squeezes through, takes out his flashlight, and he immediately sees something on the far side of the chamber. He realizes he's looking at a large case that's sitting on a stone platform.
To get a closer look, Wyatt brings in a surprising piece of equipment.
He uses a colonoscope, the same thing that doctors use to do colonoscopies, to look inside. Remember, he's trained as a nurse anesthetist, not an archaeologist. He drills a 5/8-inch hole into the stone case, and he inserts his camera. Wyatt claims to see that there's a box with a flat golden side, and on top, he sees a cherub. This is it. He believes he's found the Ark of the Covenant.
But Wyatt keeps the details of his discovery a secret.
Wyatt says that God instructs him to leave the Ark just as he found it. God tells him that there will be a time leading up to the apocalypse when all will finally be revealed, where the Ark will be restored to its glory.
So Wyatt seals up the cave and doesn't reveal its exact location. He passes away in 1999. Who knows, maybe someday they'll get an excavation permit and be able to prove Wyatt's claims. But until that happens, most Ark hunters think it's best to keep looking elsewhere.
Coming up, a new potential location is discovered.
The scholar looks and he tells him, this says, herein lies the Golden Ark.
And later, the legendary tale of another powerful ark.
It's one of the best known and most scrutinized tales in the Bible.
According to the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant's last known location is Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, before it completely disappears from the historical record in 587 BC.
That's the same time the Babylonians lay siege to Jerusalem and eventually destroy the temple, and some believe, along with it, the Ark.
But one scripture, called 2nd Maccabees, offers a different possibility. The Ark might have been saved by a prophet named Jeremiah.
Jeremiah receives a divine message, which the scripture calls an oracle. And then, having received this oracle, Jeremiah, and I'm quoting, ordered that the ark should follow with him. So they pick up the ark, along with a couple of other temple treasures, and they sneak out of Jerusalem.
He gets around the Babylonian blockade, and Jeremiah is ordered to take these holy objects to, quote, the mountain where Moses went up and saw the inheritance of God.
In the Bible, that location is Mount Nebo, which is in present-day Jordan.
According to 2nd Maccabees, Jeremiah came and found a cave dwelling, and he brought there the ark and the altar of incense, and he sealed up the entrance.
So 2nd Maccabees serves as a kind of treasure map for people who want to find the ark and follow Jeremiah's path and look for a cave that's been sealed up.
Including a Bible school teacher named A.F. Futterer.
Futterer is born in Australia in 1871, and from an early age he has a great passion for adventure.
When he isn't teaching scripture, he spends his time researching his other passion, the Ark of the Covenant.
He studies everything about the Ark that he can get his hands on, and in 1926, after 2 years of preparation, he sets out to find it. Futterer travels to what was then called the Emirate of Transjordan.
When he arrives in 1926, Futterer and 2 assistants hike to the top of Mount Nebo.
Once they're at the summit, Futterer spots an indentation that's sealed by stones, similar to what's described in 2nd Maccabees.
Futterer sees an opening in the roof of the cave where the indentation is, and he has the assistants lower him inside on a rope. Once he reaches the ground, he sees a long corridor with drawings on one of the walls. As he gets closer, he believes that the markings are some kind of pre-Christian petroglyphs.
He takes his journal out and he draws a sketch of everything that he sees on the wall.
At this point, Futterer is convinced he's in the right place. He believes the Ark must be hidden or buried somewhere in this cave.
There's only one problem.
Because the cave is a historical site, Futterer is forbidden from doing any kind of excavation.
Despite leaving empty-handed, Futterer doesn't give up.
So the story goes that with his journal in hand, Futterer goes back to Jerusalem and he shows his sketches to a scholar of Hebrew. The scholar looks at Futterer and tells him, "This says, herein lies the golden ark."
Futterer is ecstatic. He goes back to the local authorities and tries everything in his power to get permission to dig, but they just won't budge. So, similar to Ron Wyatt, Futterer believes his experience is simply part of God's plan, that the ark is not meant to be found yet.
A.F. Futterer dies in 1951, but his work inspires others to pick up where he left off.
Decades later, an amateur archaeologist named Thomas Kreutzer aims to build on Futterer's work looking for the ark. Kreutzer gets a hold of Futterer's original drawings from inside the cave, and he sets off to Jordan with 3 associates in 1981.
Kreutzer and his friends plan to search the area around the top of Mount Nebo, but before they go any further, they have to get permission from the Franciscan monastery that now owns the land at the summit.
The director of the monastery issues Kreutzer a permit that grants him permission to explore and photograph the caves, but they only have 5 days to search. On their last day on the mountain, they find a cave that appears to perfectly match Futterer's drawings.
Eventually, they come to a wall blocking their path. Luckily, there's a small hole in the wall allowing them to squeeze through one at a time.
According to Kreutzer's account, they encounter 2 more walls. This time, they have to break through to get past. This totally goes against the rules of the permit, but they do it anyways, and they find themselves inside a small chamber.
Kreutzer turns on his flashlight, and right in front of him, he sees a gold-colored box that can only be the Ark of the Covenant. Next to the box, the men see a wrapped bundle of poles like the ones that would have been used to carry the Ark.
Kreutzer measures the box, and remarkably, the dimensions match the biblical account.
Kreutzer knows removing the ark from the cave would have pretty grave consequences, and he decides that the best thing that they could do would be to photograph the ark.
When he gets back to the U.S., Kreutzer announces his discovery to the media in November of 1981.
In response to Kreutzer's announcement, the Biblical Archaeology Review magazine sends a prominent archaeologist to interview Kreutzer and review his evidence.
Kreutzer shows Dr. Siegfried Horn slides of the photos he took inside the cave chamber. But nearly all of the slides are dark and blurry, and Horn can't really tell what he's looking at.
Just as he's about to write off Kreutzer's story as a hoax, he sees 2 pictures that are of reasonable quality, and in these photos, he sees what appears to be an ark. Horn's magazine wants him to fly to Jordan to verify what Kreutzer claims to be the Ark of the Covenant. But before Horn can make his trip to Mount Nebo, the trip is canceled.
Once the Jordanian government learns that Kreutzer's team disobeyed the rules and dug inside the cave, they cancel all archaeological permits for the foreseeable future. This means that nobody has been back inside the cave for more than 40 years.
Coming up, a monk in Africa who claims to have the true Ark.
The only reason a temple would have been built would be to house the Ark of the Covenant.
And later,
There's a similar reason that no one has found Noah's Ark.
Holy Toledo. Look at that.
They've been looking in the wrong place.
the search for the Ark of the Covenant has crisscrossed the globe and continues today. But one group in particular believes it's all been a wasted effort because they already know where it is.
Judaism has a very, very long history in Ethiopia. When the Jews fled Egypt, they did it in two directions. One going south along the Nile, which brings you right to Ethiopia, and the other one north through the desert and eventually into Israel. So the Ethiopian Jews were there right from the very start.
Ethiopian texts give several different accounts about how the Ark got into their possession, but all of them state that it was willfully and rightfully brought there.
In 2002, researcher Bob Kornuk attempts to get to the bottom of this.
Bob Cornuke is a former crime scene investigator, and he leads a research team called BASE, Bible Archaeology Search and Expedition. He starts by trying to figure out precisely when and why the Ark was taken out of Jerusalem. He believes it happened before the Babylonian invasion, around 687 BC, during the reign of King Manasseh.
Manasseh is a nefarious ruler who, quote, shed so much innocent blood that he filled Jerusalem from end to end. He kills his son by burning him alive. He also murders the prophet Isaiah. These acts greatly disturb the Levite priests of Jerusalem, who are tasked with maintaining the temple and keeping the ark. So, under the cover of darkness, the priests grab the ark and flee the city.
Next, they supposedly traveled down the Nile River to Elephantine Island in Egypt, where a small colony of Jews have migrated from Israel.
So that's where Cornuke goes. He arrives at Elephantine Island, and his team immediately begins to investigate. They claim to discover the ruins of a temple with the same dimensions of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. They're able to determine that the temple was built around 650 BC.
According to Israelite law, temples were not supposed to be built outside of Jerusalem. The only reason a temple would have been built would be to house something as magnificent and as holy as the Ark of the Covenant.
But to Cornuke's disappointment, the Ark is no longer there.
Cornuke is told that the ark was taken long ago to the city of Aksum and now resides in the chapel of the tablet next door to the Cathedral of Our Lady Mary of Zion.
So Bob Cornuke goes to Aksum, but only one person is allowed to have access to the Ark, and that's the guardian monk of the Ark. No one else is allowed in.
Cornuke is allowed to speak with the guardian, who tells him that, yes, indeed, the Ark is here in the chapel behind me, but it'll never be shown to the world out of fear that it's far too powerful.
After his trip to Ethiopia, Cornuke is convinced. He writes several books about his experience, and the BASE Foundation issues a statement. What we have concluded is that St. Mary's of Zion Church in Aksum, Ethiopia, is the resting place either of an incredible replica of the biblical Ark of the Covenant or of the actual Ark of the Covenant itself.
There are individuals who believe the Ark might be elsewhere, but the only place that has consistently said for hundreds and hundreds of years that yes, we have the Ark here is Ethiopia in the town of Aksum.
According to the book of Exodus, the Israelites might not have survived their many trials without help from the Ark of the Covenant. But it's not the only ark featured in the Bible. Go back even earlier to the book of Genesis, and you'll find another. And this one is tasked with saving all of humanity.
The story of Noah's Ark from the book of Genesis is one of the best known and most scrutinized tales in the Bible.
Noah's Ark is designed to save all of creation, where the Ark of the Covenant was designed specifically for the children of Israel. Noah's Ark, it benefits us all.
According to a common interpretation of biblical chronology, about 1,600 years or so after God creates Adam, God becomes angry about humankind's corrupt and wicked ways. So he decides to basically obliterate everyone and start over.
God chooses to spare a righteous man named Noah. He tells Noah to build an ark, which in this case is not a small golden box, but rather a giant wood vessel to float on water during an impending flood of epic proportions.
God himself decides to provide detailed instructions and plans to Noah. He says it's going to be built using gopher wood. It should have a door, a roof, 3 decks, and many, many rooms. God says the length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits.
This translates to the ark being about 80 feet wide, 50 feet tall, and a whopping 500 feet long, or about 1.5 football fields.
Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and their wives will be the only people allowed to board the ark. But they'll be sharing it with a male and female of every kind of land animal and bird, which God orders Noah to collect. Noah gathers all of the animals. By some estimates, there are as many as 6,800 of them, along with enough food for everyone to survive such a long flood.
When the ark is finally ready to go, the heavens open and it rains nonstop for 40 days and 40 nights, cleansing the earth of sin and wickedness and all living creatures that didn't end up on that boat.
When the rain stops, the book of Genesis says that the ark comes to rest in a place called the mountains of Ararat.
So after the water subsided, Noah sends out all the animals, and they started rebuilding civilization.
While we don't know the ancient location of the mountains of Ararat, there is a mountainous area between Armenia and eastern Turkey, where there is, in fact, a mountain currently named Mount Ararat.
While the biblical story of Noah's Ark has been told for thousands of years, many people have questioned its historical accuracy.
It's hard to imagine that at any point in human history, a flood could have engulfed the entire Earth. With what we know about geology, it's just not feasible.
But in 1999, a famous explorer sets out to find solid evidence.
Robert Ballard is a former Navy officer and underwater archaeologist who's become world famous because in 1985 he locates the wreck of the Titanic.
His resume is pretty impeccable. After he locates the Titanic find, he locates the Bismarck in 1989 and the USS Yorktown in 1998. The following year, in 1999, he sets his sights on the story of Noah's Ark.
Ballard joins a team of archaeologists that are studying the Black Sea, which borders Turkey and isn't too far from Mount Ararat. They have a theory that there might have been a massive ancient flood in this area, big enough that the people of the time would have considered it a world-ending flood, and that this could have inspired the story of Noah's Ark.
The team starts by analyzing layers of soil in the area and conducts sonar searches underwater.
The sonar comes back with an incredible result. They find the remains of an ancient civilization, approximately 7,000 years old, who perished during a catastrophic flood. This is a large community found 300 feet down at the bottom of the Black Sea. But back then, they lived on the shore of a much smaller freshwater lake.
7,000 years ago, there are glaciers covering northern Europe, but as they rapidly melt, the Mediterranean Sea rises incredibly quickly and pushes a channel through the Bosphorus, flooding the area with salt water at a rate of 200 times the volume of Niagara Falls. The floodwaters are so fast-moving that the people would have been pushed inland at a rate of over a mile per day. So by the end, around 100,000 square miles are inundated.
This is as far as the eye can see and well beyond. To any ancient human in the area, this is certainly equivalent to the whole world flooding.
Their incredible findings are announced to the press in 2000.
They say this could be Noah's flood, or at least its inspiration. They're quick to point out that they didn't find a massive boat or anything like that, but as far as a flood is concerned, a really, really big one happened right here, near Mount Ararat, where the Bible places the story of the Ark.
And of course, the press runs wild with it. Noah's flood found. It makes a major international stir.
But what about the actual Ark?
The announcement by Ballard's team in 2000 completely reignites this desire to hunt for Noah's Ark, because that's how you can actually prove the biblical story. Find the boat.
One determined group of amateur archaeologists from Hong Kong makes headlines when they go to Turkey in 2004 to look for it.
Noah's Ark Ministries International, or NAMI, convinces the Turkish government to issue them a permit and allow their team up to explore the summit of Mount Ararat. It turns out to be a very difficult climb. The weather is bad, but they do make it to nearly 14,000 feet, and at that altitude, they find a wooden object they believe to be part of Noah's Ark.
The team wants to take a sample of the wooden object for testing, but bad weather makes it impossible. So they do the next best thing. They shoot video.
When the NAMI team gets back to Hong Kong, they hold a press conference announcing they found Noah's Ark.
This is incredible. For once, someone has actually managed to film the thing. We should finally be able to figure this out. They show the video they shot, but it's blurry and nobody is really that impressed, except for one person, a Turkish climber named Ahmet Ertugrul.
In 2006, Ertugrul heads to Mount Ararat to bring back a piece of the Ark.
Along the way to the site, at about 13,000 feet, he sees a cave and decides to explore it. Ertugrul goes inside and claims to see this incredible wooden structure, which he believes must be Noah's Ark. The structure is made of wood that's so old that it's become petrified. Ertugrul cuts a chunk of this wood off and he sticks it in his pocket. Once Ertugrul comes down from the mountain, he calls the team and he tells them what he's found.
NAMI sends the sample to a laboratory at the University of Hong Kong for testing. They have yet to release the results of this test, but whatever it found, it's enough to convince them to return to the site.
In 2007, the organization sends a new team of 10 researchers to Mount Ararat.
This is the moment of truth. The previous NAMI team found a piece of wood. Ertugrul located even more. They're convinced the Ark is up there. They just need to finally convince the world.
Coming up, will the Hong Kong team redeem themselves?
The NAMI team once again holds a press conference. This time, people are blown away.
After coming home empty-handed, in 2007, a team from Noah's Ark Ministries International, or NAMI, heads to Mount Ararat in Turkey for a second attempt to find Noah's Ark. And this time, they're determined to bring back undisputed proof.
The team first descends to the same spot near 14,000 feet where they previously found the wooden beam, but when they reach the site, it's gone. An earthquake has leveled the entire area. Next, the team descends back to 13,000 feet where Ertugrul found the cave, and they find it too.
Several of the team members enter the cave, and they claim to see exactly what Ertugrul described. There's this incredible wooden structure that has all these dark slabs of timber. And they measure it to be about 38 feet in length and more than 8 feet in height.
The NAMI team not only take wood samples this time, but they also shoot extensive video of a much higher quality than the initial video.
When they return to Hong Kong, NAMI submits the wooden samples for radiocarbon dating.
The NAMI team once again holds a press conference, and this time people are blown away. The video is clear and compelling, and the carbon dating places the wood at around 4,800 years old. They believe this is when Noah's biblical flood takes place.
But not everyone's convinced.
In 2008, Andrew Snelling, who's a scientist who reviews the results, tells the press that only 1 out of 4 of their samples dates back 4,800 years. The others are much newer.
This result causes many people to doubt their overall claim that this is indeed Noah's Ark.
Then in 2011, NAMI ultimately disbands.
At this point, the Turkish government has sort of discouraged these sorts of expeditions. They have declined to reveal these locations. And, why would they do this? The general idea is that this has become just too much of a magnet for problematic treasure hunters.
Ararat is a dangerous place. They probably don't want the bad press of anyone dying up there hunting for the Ark. And at this point, it's not as if it's an unexplored area. There are expeditions in 1948, in 1952, in 1955, in 1982, and 1983. The list goes on and on.
It's been pretty thoroughly searched. Whatever the NAMI team found, maybe we'll eventually get indisputable proof of what it is. Meanwhile, we probably don't need to go trekking around Mount Ararat anytime soon.
Is it possible the Ark could be somewhere else?
The Bible lists the final landing spot as the mountains of Ararat. But the truth is that the mountain in Turkey was named way, way after the fact. It got its name from the Bible. It was named after the story, not the other way around. So there's no indication that this is the actual mountain from the Bible.
This opens up an endless array of new possibilities.
Amateur archaeologist Bob Cornuke, famous for his hunt for the Ark of the Covenant, also wants to find Noah's Ark. After, quote-unquote, finding the Ark of the Covenant in the surprising location of Ethiopia, he comes to believe that there's a similar reason that no one has found Noah's Ark. They've been looking in the wrong place.
Bob Cornuke has already been to Mount Ararat like everyone else. He doesn't find the Ark. But then he meets a man named Ed Davis.
In 1943, Ed Davis is working for the Army Corps of Engineers in the Hamadan province in Iran. According to Davis, the locals take him up to the top of a mountain, 13,000 feet up, and they show him what they believe to be the remains of Noah's Ark.
For confirmation, Cornuke looks at an ancient map of the area.
One of the earliest world maps is a huge 4-foot by 5-foot medieval hand-drawn parchment called the Hereford Mappa Mundi. And right in the center of it is Noah's Ark. It's in Hamadan, which is right next to where Ed Davis is stationed.
Cornuke finds a mountain near that area called Mount Suleiman, which is another name for King Solomon. This is unusual because it's the only place anywhere nearby with a biblical name.
The evidence is enough to convince Cornuke to search the site himself in July of 2005.
He reaches 13,000 feet in elevation, right at the same spot where Ed Davis described the Ark, and nearby, Cornuke finds fossilized clams. Since they're way up here on the top of a mountain, he believes this is proof that there was a massive ancient flood in the area.
A little further up, he finds several rocks that are, quote, uncannily beam-like in appearance. Cornuke believes that these rocks are actually petrified wood.
Oh, good. Can you get it? Yeah. Oh, baby. That looks like a piece of wood, guys.
He also believes that he finds a worship shrine that's littered with wooden fragments.
Soon after, Cornuke has the rocks analyzed.
Sure enough, they are petrified wood. Unfortunately, because it's petrified, this wood can't be dated.
The other wood fragments he finds, he is able to have those dated. They turn out to be only 500 years old, so they can't possibly be from Noah's Ark.
Cornuke is not ready to give up. He believes that even though it's not that old, this wood is part of a structure that has been built and rebuilt across thousands of years, a place where visitors could come to pray and worship at the site of Noah's Ark.
He believes ancient people may have been commemorating the site basically ever since the Ark originally came to rest here.
The political situation in the area has prevented Cornuke from any further research, but he hopes to one day be able to go back to Iran and pursue evidence on his theory of Noah's Ark.
As for the big ancient flood that Noah might have endured, there's a good chance a version of that actually did take place. Studies have found evidence of massive ancient floods between 5,000 and 10,000 years old in India, various parts of Europe, and the Middle East, and various religions in all these areas tell their own flood stories.
So what's intriguing to me is that these flood myths all are from many cultures, but they do share certain similarities. So it's possible that these tales are told through many generations until they're finally written down in the book of Genesis and given a hero like Noah or Gilgamesh or Utnapishtim. The ancient experience of the Israelites with the Ark of the Covenant and the story of Noah and his ark, they weren't just made up out of thin air. They came from stories of real people, real objects, and real events. Maybe they got embellished and changed along the way, but there is some truth at their core.
Two powerful arcs, two stories of tragedy, triumph, and salvation. It's easy to see why these incredible biblical artifacts have inspired so many. Until both arks are finally discovered, one thing is certain: we will continue to look for them. I'm Dennis Quaid, and thank you for watching Holy Marvels.